Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. It is an iconic Canadian brand and institution, but after 355 years in business, the Hudson's Bay Company is asking for permission to liquidate and close its 80 stores. It's in court right now and still looking for a lifeline. What are your memories of the Bay, and what could its closure mean for you and the country? And in our second half, it is St. Patrick's Day. Millions of people, Irish and non, are celebrating all things Ireland today. What does this day mean for you? I'm Dan Burrett, in for Michelle Elliott this week. Welcome to BC Today. Thank you for joining us on radio, TV, and live stream. You can call us now on our top story. What does the potential shutdown of Hudson's Bay mean for you? Are you a customer? Are you a former employee? Are you a current employee? There are 9,000 jobs at risk. Our number is 604-669-3733. You can also call 1-800-825-5950 or hit pound 690 on your cell phone. Please be pulled over or hands-free if you're driving, or email us, bctoday@cbc.ca. A retail empire and Canada's oldest business is on the verge of closing its 355-year-old doors this week. The Hudson's Bay Company has been fondly known to Canadians as the one-stop department store where you could buy a designer wedding dress, kitchen appliances, patio furniture, and much more all in one go. Now that legacy is fading away. The Bay filed for creditor protection last week, and a liquidation plan could begin at all of its 80 locations across the country as soon as tomorrow. That could put 9,000 jobs at risk. Still, at last check, the company is holding out hope it will find a lifeline and can restructure. We headed out to the flagship Bay store at downtown Vancouver at Georgia and Granville to speak with shoppers.
Sad if it closed down. I've been coming here forever, and Hudson's Bay's, 400 years of history in Canada. It'd be terrible if it shut down.
It's fun coming downtown as a kid, and this was a store we would always come to.
One of the only department stores in downtown Vancouver now that's not, really, really expensive, so It's going to be a real loss.
With having lost our other stores of the past, Eaton's, then this was one of the last of the department stores that reflected a Canadian identity.
We're asking you, what are your memories of the Bay? Do you shop at the Bay or other department stores? What do the Bay's challenges say about the future of department stores in Canada? Once again, our numbers, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733 is our number in Metro Vancouver, pound 690 on your cell phone, or email us, bctoday@cbc.ca. Joining us for this part of the show is David Ian Gray. He's a retail strategist here in the Lower Mainland, a frequent guest on CBC. David, good to see you.
Good to see you, Dan.
First of all, this news was a shock to some people. Was it a shock to you that the Bay had gone into creditor protection?
I felt for some time it was a case of when it happens, not if it happens, Dan. So in terms of the exact moment, I was sort of surprised last week, but all the signals were pointing here at some point.
And at last check, our colleagues who were in the courtroom in Toronto saying that there was so much interest from media and other people that they in fact had to open up a second room. What does that say about the impact not only of a company that's of 355 plus years, but I mean, physically, it's just a massive place.
Well, the first part of that, I'm going to say I'm supposed to be objective on these calls, but I'm also a proud Canadian, and I also associate the imagery of the Hudson Bay Company with Canada, and so it sort of has an outsized distress, I think, about it as far as that goes. But it's been American owned for some time, and most of the brands are American. In terms of the space, that I think is the root of the issue. I think there is such a profound adherence to maintaining those boxes in suburban shopping centers, as opposed to truly rethinking what did the 2000s, what could that bring to the idea of a Hudson Bay Company of the future? And that was never really in the cards. I think it was always how to extract, for as long as possible, value out of the boxes that are 80 of them plus the licensees peppering the country.
And you think about the sheer size of them. We mentioned the store here in downtown Vancouver. It's a city block, and at last evaluation, I believe it was close to $200 million. You can imagine that may be a lot more. Just before we get to you, back to you, David, let's go to Linda in Summerland. Linda, what are your memories of the Bay?
Well, I have really fond memories of the Bay, but first of all, it was my first job in about 1972. They really supported the high schools. And so they reached out to the high schools and they said anybody that wanted to possibly work in the jeunesse department, which was the young females department, to apply. So I applied and I got the job. And it was wonderful. We had fashion shows for teenagers. You know, we really represented our schools, and it was a real connection with the community. And I thought that was incredible. I continue to be a proud supporter of the Bay because they treated me so well over, those couple of years. And I bought everything from furniture to clothing, etc. And just most recently, I was looking for some nice clothes for my granddaughters. And Penticton doesn't have a lot in that age range of quality clothing. And sure enough, I found it at the Bay. It's always my go-to to find quality fabric or quality clothing, and never been disappointed, always treated well. I think it's going to be a super big loss for Canada, for our communities, because it was that one place that that you could go and get good quality merchandise for a fair price, So myself, I'm really going to miss not having the Bay.
Linda, just stay on the line a moment. I mean, we should emphasize the process is not final. The Bay is hoping that it can restructure. What we don't know what that looks like. David, just before I get to you, one more question for you, Linda. What do you think is going through the minds of those 9,000 workers? You're a former Bay employee.
Yeah. I can't imagine, especially since they're not going to get a pension, I understand, from working there. But, I mean, good jobs are hard to find. And even in this economy, I think it's just going to be a lot of people who are going to have a hard time replacing that job. And because of the way, they treat you so well, and it was decent pay, and it was such a lovely environment to work in. So I really feel sad for those people, for sure.
Linda, we appreciate your call. Thanks very much, Linda in Summerland. David, what do you make of what you heard from Linda there? It was a good place to work at the time she was there, but you go into a store now, and some of those floors are pretty drab and depressing.
They are, and that's all part of that long-run decline. I would say, though, that staff are harder to find now because they've been terminated, let go over many years, the staffing levels. But I would say, even now when you go in, the people that are there are very committed to the brand. They're not checked out. And I've been encouraging our network of retail executives to get on social media. If they're looking for talent, open the door and encourage those to come apply to you. But we think of the nostalgia often as a consumer nostalgia, but I'm hearing a lot from people whose career began at the Bay. In the 1980s, and I say that only because that was kind of the peak of those department stores in suburbia in the malls, but the Bay and Eaton's were considered centers of excellence for retail practice. And they were educational places. If someone who wanted a career in retail, they would learn at one of those two institutions and go on and have a terrific career either with them or somewhere else. And I can understand that nostalgia for the on the employee side of things.
We're talking about the Bay. What are your memories of Canada's oldest company? Give us a call now, 1-800-825-5950 across our great big province. Pound 690 on your cell phone here in Metro Vancouver. The number is 604-669-3733. You can email us bctoday@cbc.ca. We're talking with retail analyst David Ian Gray, friend of the show. David, more on the inside of the stores. We've heard it recently, and it's been the past couple of years, where maintenance appeared to be a problem. Elevators, particularly at the downtown store, didn't work. At last check, none of the elevators were working. The escalators had shut down, and your option to get to the sixth floor men's section, where I've shopped before, and the staff are great, you have to take a fire escape and a long series of stairs. What does that say about, and you mentioned before about the ownership around what was going on with investment or lack thereof in the stores?
The ownership since 2008 has been a real estate private equity. They were public for a while, but the leadership are incredibly talented and professional investor type people. And, combined with them splitting Hudson Bay Company away from Saks and raising funds for Saks to take over Neiman Marcus, that's where I saw them focused. That was a year ago. And the HVAC and the elevators, that was basically not paying the maintenance contractors that they'd contracted. And so you can see the writing on the wall where they were just they were harvesting an asset basically for the last while. How do we extend the life of these stores as long as we can and generate return? But there was no, investment back into them. Once you degrade a brand like that, it's really, you're breaking trust with customers. It's very hard to get that trust back.
Let's go to Tim in Surrey. Tim, what are your thoughts on what the Bay is going through right now?
Well, I'm of an age where I used to go to the Bay, as a lot of Canadians did. But my question to your guest is, if we're now trying to buy Canadian with what's happening down south, but historically, why is it that Canada can't keep a Woodward's, an Eaton's, a Zellers, a Bay, a Simpson Sears, even though there was a Sears Roebuck, the American component? But why is it that Canada can't have its own department store? It really puzzles me as somebody who's lived this country all his life. Just putting that out.
Okay. Tim, appreciate your call. Thanks very much. And David, he sort of went over the graveyard of retailers past in this country.
Well, the same thing's been happening in the U.S. as well. And my thesis on this is there was a time when that model, when you picture those, there's the flagships downtown, which are one thing, but just picture all the Red Deers and Sudburys and communities across Canada that have a enclosed shopping mall that was really developed with these anchor tenants, Eaton's and the Bay in mind. That was really well suited to a time and place where if you wanted to, they housed everything. First of all, I heard another caller talk about furniture and all sorts of things, but that model you would never invent that today if it didn't exist. It just doesn't work today. And you say, why? Well, there's so many specialist competitors out there. And the brands that seem to be working are like Lululemon, Aritzia. They're their own private labels. The exclusivity that you might have had in a department store years ago, the internet has wiped that out. And even those brands sell direct to consumers now. So it's not like that's the only place you can go get them. And they're just so big. Like retail doesn't go into those big spaces anymore. So I think to answer your caller, it's not about Canada. It's just that model doesn't work and they tried to keep it going too long. I might point out that Simons has a rich legacy in Canada. It's Canadian out of Quebec. And it is smaller. It's more focused on fashion and some housewares, not everything. And about 70% of its product they design and make themselves. They may license it offshore, but it's their product. It's exclusive to Simons. So that model does seem to be working.
Let's go to Alfred in Nanaimo. Alfred, what are your memories and thoughts on what's happening with the Bay?
Okay, well, first of all, it's a very sad day for Canada, I think. You can tell by my accent that I wasn't born in Canada. I emigrated from Glasgow in 1967 to Stettler, Alberta, small town Alberta. I arrived there with a wife and 2 kids, no money, and I needed to get furniture. I drove up to Edmonton, and the Bay was a place that I knew, and that was my first contact with the Bay. They were excellent. They helped me out. They gave me sent furniture down there on a deal that when my money came through from Scotland from the sale of my house, I would settle the bill with them. They took me at face value, and that was my first. And then later on, when I was in Nanaimo, BC, where I am now, there was a sale on there. I went to get running shoes at the sale. I was a badminton coach, and they didn't have any running shoes. So I wrote in saying how disappointed I was with that. And also, when I was out there, I thought I'll pick up a pair of jeans, all made in China. So I wrote in about that, saying, first of all, no running shoes. Secondly, everything in China. Did Tiananmen Square really happen, or was that my imagination? I thought that would be the end of it. And 2 weeks later, I got a call saying there were running shoes in now. They apologised. You come out there, get as many pairs as you want. We'll give you the deal that was advertised in the paper. And I said to the guy, what about the other thing? And he chuckled. He said, Tiananmen Bay Square, that's someone else's problem. I was phoned about that a week later. We have now 2 pairs of jeans in here, both made in Canada. One made Union and the other, but that's the Bay. The Bay did listen. They did come through for me, and I stayed with them to this day. But I did walk in the store in Nanaimo and see so many empty shelves, so I'm not shocked at what's happened today, just very disappointed.
Alfred, we appreciate your call. Thank you for sharing it with us. We have a couple of other calls I want to get to now. Let's jump to Alan in West Vancouver. Alan, I understand you used to work at the Bay.
Yes. Hi there. I emigrated from England in 1968. Came on actually one of the last immigrant boats from Liverpool, and it came to docked in Montreal, and we stayed there for 3 years. And the Bay, which was then called Morgan's, it was a bay, but it was Morgan's downtown Montreal. It later changed, but so I worked for the Bay. I think it was the centennial that year. I had a medal one time that I had that I've been looking for. I can't find. But anyway, I worked there for 3 years before coming to Vancouver.
And any memories stand out for you in terms of what's happening now?
Yes, it's kind of sad. I live in West Vancouver, just up from Park Royal, and the Bay is just literally on my doorstep. And I was just past there just a few minutes ago, and it really is unfortunate, to see such a lovely store. Still got great product in there, really good clothing and everything, but it really is unfortunate to see, hardly anybody in there. It's just like a morgue. It's like somebody said earlier, it's kind of depressing. So, but with all the online shopping and everything, it's a totally different world now, unfortunately.
Alan, thank you very much for your call. We appreciate it. We have a few more calls to get to. Let's get through them. Peter is joining us from Vancouver. Peter, you have a nice story to tell about the Bay.
I do. I've been a regular shopper at the Bay for years, and mostly at the downtown store in Vancouver. And in better times, they used to have a number of events within the store, for example, fashion shows, etc. And I would attend those, and I teamed up with a DJ once when they were scheduling an event on the 6th floor for the men. It was a men's night. And I said to the DJ, would you mind if I bring in some dancing friends? I love your music. We'd like to do a little dancing. And so she said, sure, why don't you do that? So there on the 6th floor, on this special night for the men, we had a dance party. And the dancing and the music put everyone in such a good mood. The store was packed. Everybody was having fun. The suppliers had provided food and drinks for the occasion. And it was just like one big Christmas party, and everybody shopped a lot. They had to put their bags down so we could dance. And when you looked, there were shopping bags all over. Everybody had a good time. The staff, everybody was happy. So that's my memory of the Bay. It's quite different from what you see now.
Indeed. We appreciate your call, Peter. Thank you very much. And we have more calls coming in. And let's go to Melissa now in Vancouver. Thanks for waiting, Melissa. You have another special story about the Bay.
Yeah, my parents met while they were working at the Bay, and my dad ended up working as an executive for the Bay his whole life, and meanwhile my mom became a commercial spokesperson for Woodward's, and was for a good 10 years when we lived in Alberta. So we had sort of a running joke kind of competition going in the house, and there was one staff party at my dad's business where they went where he dressed in the Bay colors and my mom dressed up as a cheerleader in the Woodward's colors.
Melissa, thanks so much for the call. That has to be an interesting memory. We appreciate that. We're going to squeeze in Ruth and Langley. If you can keep it short, we appreciate it. Last call to you, Ruth. What are your memories of the Bay?
Well, I came to Canada in 1976, so it was a real experience for me from Europe to have a big store where everything is available, and you could still find Canadian-made items. So that was the biggest thing for me, and especially Bay Days, you couldn't beat that.
Ruth, we very much appreciate your call. David, we're just up against the clock, but lastly, amid all of that nostalgia and memories, do you see any way out for the Bay? Can they restructure, do you think?
Real long shot. If they do, they'll be down to 20-ish stores, which may actually be more right-sized for them. But the fundamental issues around it, just rebooting the existing concept and trying to do some improvements, I don't think will be enough in the long run. But I hope that there's some miracle here, and maybe at the end of the day, the brand is something more than a department store, and maybe it's got another life to live that we can't foresee right now.
David Ian Gray, retail strategist in the Lower Mainland. We really appreciate your time and your expertise. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
We are coming up on almost 12:28. Thank you for joining us. You're listening to BC Today. Tariff tensions are brewing and between BC and one of its neighboring American states, Alaska. Alaskan Senator Dan Sullivan is calling for U.S. cruise ships to bypass BC ports. This in response to the province potentially charging levies on commercial trucks passing through our province on their way to and from Alaska. The Tourism Association of BC's chair told Stephen Quinn on the early edition, this move could prove hard to pull off.
Personally, I don't think that the cruise industry is ready for this. They plan their itineraries, 3 years in advance, and then they start selling them 2 years in advance. And people are booking hotel rooms, they're booking excursions, they're, coming to Vancouver and stopping in Victoria. I mean, it's a $1.79 billion industry to BC. And in 2024, Vancouver saw 1.32 million passengers. And it employs over 10,000 full-time employees. So this would be devastating if it did happen. I mean, it is, a tit for tat threat. We don't know if any of this is going to come to pass. And I really hope it doesn't, because cruise is such an important industry to Canada, because there's also cruising in Eastern Canada. So this isn't just the West Coast we're looking at.
This is BC Today on CBC. We're on Radio 1, CBC Television, and live streaming on our website, cbc.ca/BC. Don't forget YouTube at CBC Vancouver and on our CBC News app. We're everywhere. Coming up in our second half hour, yes, it is St. Patrick's Day. We'll speak with Ireland's Consul in Vancouver, and we want to hear what Ireland means to you. You don't have to be Irish to enjoy this. That's after the news break with Robert Zimmerman.
Good afternoon. BC Hydro customers can expect a rate increase this year and next, which will add $3.75 a month to the average bill. Energy Minister Adrian Dix issued a directive to the BC Utilities Commission to hydro rates to increase rates by 3.7%. Dix says even with the increase, British Columbians have among the lowest electricity rates in North America. A 71-year-old man is recovering in hospital after being shot late Saturday night in a wooded area near Highway 1 in Burnaby. Police say the victim may have been living in the area. Investigators believe it was an isolated incident, but there's no word on a possible motive. And there will be no Easter train in Stanley Park this year. The train was suspended late last year because of safety concerns around engine emissions. The park board says testing of the locomotives shows the attempts to fix the emission problems were not successful. And now the forecast on the north coast. A chance of showers this afternoon with a high of 7. Highs around -5 with periods of snow in the Peace. In the central interior, including Prince George, increasing cloudiness with a high of 2. Highs to 8 degrees with a mix of sun and cloud in the Kootenays. In the southern interior, including Kelowna, some sunshine with a high of 8 as well. And for Metro Vancouver, Greater Victoria and the Fraser Valley, a mix of sun and cloud this afternoon with highs reaching 9. That's your CBC News update from Vancouver.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zimmerman, and thank you for joining us on CBC Radio 1, CBC Television, and live streaming on the CBC News app. We're on cbc.ca/BC and the CBC Vancouver YouTube page. Well, it is St. Patrick's Day, and we're reflecting on Canada and BC's connections to Ireland. Over the past decade, immigration data tells us that over 60,000 Irish citizens came to Canada. It was part of the federal international mobility program. Many of them have made their home in this province, including Maeve Atchison. She told the CBC's Early Edition about how she settled in.
Yeah, I don't know if you probably noticed it out here. The Irish tend to gather together, so when they find something good, they want to share it with everyone back home. So they got me to move out.
I have noticed that it seems that Irish people have almost overtaken Australians in Whistler now.
Yeah. And like Kitsilano in Ireland, like we're from counties is what we would call them. I suppose smaller areas within provinces.
Yes.
And we call Kitsilano County Kits because there's so many Irish people living there now. I think like city-wise, it's quite similar to Dublin where I lived before I moved here. I'm from Tipperary originally. So it's like similar in size city, similar kind of, I suppose, amenities and offerings, which was great. But I suppose what Vancouver has that we don't have at home is just like such an outdoorsy lifestyle. I mean, to be able to like swim in the sea and be in the middle of the city within minutes of your day and then be up the mountains later that day and like skiing one weekend, doing something totally different. So like that was kind of the picture that was painted to me, and that's definitely like the reality of it here.
It is March 17th, so the green is flowing for many people across the world as Ireland celebrates St. Patrick's Day. Last year, the Government of Canada estimated there were 4.5 million English and French-speaking Canadians that have Irish ancestry, representing almost 15% of our population. We're asking you, are you celebrating St. Patrick's Day? Do you have Irish roots? If not, why do you celebrate it? And what do you make of Canada's connections with Ireland? Give us a call, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, pound 690 on your cell phone, and you can email bctoday@cbc.ca. Joining us for the segment is Cathy Geagan. She is Vancouver's Consul General of Ireland, and she's in studio. And for those watching, yes, she has many, many shades of green on, and it's brilliant. Welcome, Consul. Nice to see you.
Thank you so much, Dan. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. And I would be remiss if I did not attempt a little bit of Gaelic, if I may. I had my colleague Adeline Regan explain this to me. Hopefully I can get through this. Banach tí na féile Pádraig Urt.
That is brilliant.
Not bad.
Yeah,
okay.
Fantastic.
Thank you. And you'll be able to explain it better. What did I just say?
So you said blessings and greetings of St. Patrick to you.
Very good. All right. We're all learning something today. It's brilliant. First of all, we hear those numbers about how many people have the Irish roots. It's funny how so many more people become Irish on this day.
Yes. Everybody is Irish on St. Patrick's Day. Everyone's welcome to join in.
Well, and what is it about that communal feeling that even though people who don't have Irish roots, they want to join the team?
Well, I think that's a big part of Irish culture. So that's actually a really accurate representation of our culture and who we are. So, in fact, one of the things you may have heard is Céad Míle Fáilte, which literally it's the land of 100,000 welcomes. So everyone is welcome to be Irish and join in our culture. And this is the perfect day to do it. Although, unfortunately, in Canada, it's not a public holiday, which it is in Ireland. It's a little bit easier when you don't have to go to work.
No, that's true. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. How, for those who don't know, how long have you been the consul here in Vancouver?
So I'm here almost 3 years now. I'll be here 3 years in the summer, and we have a set rotation of years that we can be here. So I'm making the most of every minute that I get to be here in Vancouver, because as you mentioned, coming in, a lot of new Irish immigrants have been arriving. A lot of them come over on an IUC visa, which is a 2-year visa that allows you to work or be on holiday. But then a lot of people fall in love with the lifestyle, with the place, and to stay here, and also just with the fact there's already a lovely Irish community here. And so I've certainly experienced myself, I'm a bit in love with Vancouver too.
What drew you to this place?
So I really wanted to work somewhere that had a large Irish diaspora. Our culture and our community is something that's very important to me. And a lot of the work in the consulate involves deepening bilateral relations politically, and also deepening trade relations and working on mutually beneficial trade. But for me, something that I really love is interacting with people. And so I love meeting our diaspora here and getting to promote our culture here.
Lovely. We already have a call. Pam is joining us from Victoria. Pam, happy St. Patrick's Day. What are your connections to Ireland?
Well, my maternal grandmother's family came from Ireland to Quebec, actually, in the 1800s. And my mother was very proud of her Irish roots. And I had been to Belfast for a few days once and Dublin once. I finally went to Ireland this past December and went to County Donegal, where my family's roots are, and was taken to the property that my family lived on. There's still a broken down house on it. And so that was very exciting for me. I was very happy to do that. And I still have contact with people from my grandmother's family who are in other parts of Canada. And now in Ireland, I got taken there by a woman who's connected to our family.
Brilliant. And how are you celebrating the evening or the day, Pam?
Well, I am dressed in green. And
Bad manners not to, said an Irishman to me once.
And I'm having people over for Irish stew tonight.
Oh, brilliant. The consul is nodding along,
Yes.
nodding along in agreement.
All of this sounds like very good activities, Pam. I approve wholeheartedly.
Thanks for calling, Pam. And we want to let you know, for other callers, please give us a call now. We have a pair of tickets to give away to a lucky caller. You give us a call, and you will be up for winning a pair of tickets to Irish Movie Night with live music at the Rio Theatre later today. It starts at 6:30 p.m. if you can make it. They'll be presenting a double bill of the award-winning film Kneecap, followed by the psychological drama Bring Them Down. We'll announce the lucky winner at the end of the show. We're asking you, what does St. Patrick's Day mean to you? Whether or not you're Irish, how do you celebrate the day if you do? Give us a call, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, pound 690 on your cell phone. Please be pulled over or hands-free when you do that. And you can email us, bctoday@cbc.ca. Just before we get to Ferdinand in Sydney, Consul, Cathy, I have to ask you, what does your day look like today? What do you do?
So today, I'm actually really glad that you mentioned that double bill at the Rio, because a lot of what I'm doing today and what I've been doing for the past few days have been part of Celtic Fest, which is this brilliant, brilliant festival. And hello to the festival director, Rachel Quinn, and also to Jen Wint and everybody who has helped make it happen. We've had over 2 weeks of free and ticketed events, a brilliant family fun day, Kaylee Moore. Next Saturday, we're also going to have a big day out in Surrey. So check out Celtic Fest online. It's fantastic. So I'm going to be at the Rio later for whoever gets to win those tickets. And I'm looking forward to doing that. But a lot of what I'm doing is getting out out and about, and you will see all around Vancouver and all around BC. If you go to any Irish pub, there's going to be some Irish dancing and some really good music on. So get some green on. It's actually unlucky not to wear green today. So get some green on and get out there and enjoy it.
Excellent. Well, I've got the socks and I've got the pocket squares, so we are covered.
You're sorted. You're
very
sorted.
good, exactly. Ferdinand is joining us from Sydney. Ferdinand, go ahead.
Dan, this is Bernadette from Sydney.
My apologies, Ferdinand. I need to put on my glasses. There we are. Go ahead.
I don't know. Dias Miragwichuk Pranasi Philiporic. That means hello, good day to you, and as your guest explained, happy St. Patrick's Day, blessings of St. Patrick. So I come from County Mayo, Ballina, for Joe Biden as being famously connected to Ballina, and Mark Carney as being connected to a place called Ochamore, which is near Westport, a beautiful town in County Mayo, as your guests will probably know very well. So, unfortunately, being on the island, I can't just get across to everything in Gaelic Fest, but every year at this time, I celebrate by playing traditional Irish music, Mary Black, the Dubliners, the Chieftains, and all of the other lots of the other traditional Irish music bands and singers. So that's my claim to fame for Lough Porrick.
I love that. Ferdinand, could I ask you, what brought you to BC from Ireland?
Well, I didn't come directly from Ireland, and I'm not a typical person who immigrated. I met a man.
It's been known to happen.
The start of many stories.
In deepest, darkest Africa, and I ended up here in Vancouver in 1976, but have spent quite a bit of time out of the country because my husband's job involved a lot of travel outside the country. So that's,
Wonderful. Well, happy St. Patrick's Day to you, Ferdinand. Thank you for
Happy St. Patrick's Day. And just to say, to add to the Mayo connections, the Irish minister that was here for St. Patrick's Day in Vancouver earlier this week, Alan Dillon, he's the Minister for Small Business, is also from Mayo, and indeed a Mayo GAA player and two-time All-Star. So Mayo is well represented over here as well.
Ferdinand, thank you so much. We appreciate that. Is it Farah or Farah in Vancouver is on the line?
Farah. Hello, my friends.
Hello, Farah. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you. What's going through your head and your heart on this day?
Well, my husband and I went to our exercise class today, and the theme was St. Patrick's Day. So we all wore green. Everybody wore like really fun green earrings and hats. And the teacher had a sash saying, "Kiss me, I'm Irish," even though she's definitely not Irish. So we went and kissed her, and we did lots of Irish dancing, and we just hooped it up. And, because so many Irish people are all around, even though I'm not Irish and my husband is from Iran, we still had a great St. Paddy's morning already.
Interesting, and it's something you mentioned, Farah, thank you for the call, that welcoming spirit. And I don't know whether or not people sometimes feel a little uncomfortable when they say, well, I'm not actually Irish, or I'm not actually this. And what's the typical response?
That is absolutely. So you're Irish today, Farah, and by taking part in if you're Irish dancing, you're Irish, you're participating in our culture. It is a very open and inclusive culture, and please don't feel like, oh, am I allowed to join in? Everybody is allowed to join in. One of the most special things that I found about Canada is so many Irish people have moved here and they have become totally Canadian. They are so proud of their Canadian citizenship. They're so happy to be living and working here, and they have very proud Canadian children, and they also carry their Irish heritage with them. And that's the thing. Culture is not something that has to be exclusive. Music, theatre, all of those good things, you're so welcome to join in. So I'm delighted to hear that. And that's definitely the first St. Patrick's Day exercise class I've heard of. So I can add a new thing to my list of things I've encountered.
Step class jig.
Yeah.
Jenny is joining us from Vancouver. Jenny, happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day to you too. I actually didn't expect to be on the air, so it's nice to talk with you.
Cheers.
Yeah. I'm celebrating St. Patrick's Day by calling you.
Oh, lovely. Brilliant.
And,
What's your connection to the Emerald Isle?
Yeah, so when she asked me, my mom's side of the family, her ancestry was Irish.
Mm-hmm.
She's Canadian. I've lived in Vancouver my whole life. And my mom passed a few years ago, so I'm definitely honoring my ancestry. I'm thinking of her often, and learning Gaelic songs, and sipping tea, because apparently her side of the family ran a tea company in Ireland many years ago. So.
Really? Which one?
Yeah. Well, it's her maiden name, so I won't say, but it belonged to that side of the family.
Oh, okay, lovely.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
what's it like learning Gaelic songs?
Well, I've been involved with the community choir with Cathy for 5 years, and through her choir, I've learned some music, and through Carla Mundy's Song Roots community. So, shout out to those two people, really building community through singing. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. It's something a childhood dream was to learn Gaelic and to sing in Gaelic, and it just something speaks to my heart, like something sort of ancestral almost, So something ancient inside of me. So yeah,
that's
beautiful.
wonderful.
That's
Jenny.
beautiful, Jenny. That's really wonderful. And the whole thing about that connection to language is so true, because people express things in a totally different way in different languages. And I'm sure you feel much more connected to your mum, as well as the rest of your heritage when you have some of the cúpla focal of Gaelic. So that's wonderful.
I do. I inherited the red hair that comes from that side of the family. So, yeah.
You tick all the boxes.
We're all redheads.
You're going to look good in your green today, so that's the best combo.
Yes. Thank you for taking my call.
You're very welcome, Jenny. Happy St. Patrick's Day. We appreciate it. Jason is joining us from White Rock. Go ahead, Jason. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day. I just wanted to point out that a lot of people don't realize that I'm from Northern Ireland, and we also celebrate St. Patrick's Day, but we wear orange on St. Patrick's Day, not green. My mom taught me that one day when I was a kid. I was insisting to wear green to school, and she's like, no, you have to be wearing orange today. And I thought that was a really interesting learning experience. Also, just wanted to point out that the reason I'm living in Canada is because my parents fled the war in Ireland. So they as soon as they had their second kid, I actually had to be rushed from a hospital. They wanted to. They had a choice of going to Belfast or going out to Larne, which is a smaller city outside of Belfast. We're from Carrickfergus, and my mom chose to have me out and away from Belfast because that's where the fighting was. We ended up having to go. I had to be rushed to the hospital in Belfast because of a condition I had when I was born. And we ended up having to go through the streets. And according to what I've been told, apparently there were even bullets flying through the ambulance windows as I was being rushed to the hospital. And the nurse that was in the ambulance with me was protecting me with her own life, with her own body on the floor of the ambulance, covering me with her body as we went through these streets. So I came into the world in a hail of bullets.
Thanks so much for calling, Jason, and for kind of telling your story and sharing your story. And I can't even imagine how stressful this must have been for your mother going through it. And it's very timely. And even your message about wearing orange. So also, not a lot of people know this, that the Irish flag, which you'll see that I have here, it is called the tricolour, and it has green, which represents traditional Irish. It has orange, which is for kind of like the settlers and the Ulster community there, and it has white between them, which represents peace. So our entire flag is built around an idea of having a shared island and having peace between these communities. But obviously, for a lot of time, we didn't. And Jason, I've met a lot of people here who are originally from Northern Ireland, who left because of the troubles from both sides of the community. And I'm very happy to say that Northern Ireland now is a very different place, and it's almost 27 years since the Good Friday Agreement came in and brought about peace in our island. And it's a very precious piece to us, and it's one of the reasons that Ireland is so active in multilateral rules-based orders, and so active in the EU, in the UN, in all of these international forums promoting peace, because peace is hard won and very precious.
We appreciate your call. Thank you very much. Let's go to Alan in Vancouver. Alan, happy St. Patrick's Day. What's your connection to Ireland?
Well, my connection is kind of, interestingly, has to do with literature, poetry. I've read a lot of Dylan Thomas, and I've read the novel Ulysses by James Joyce. and I have a desire to do kind of a ramble through the hills and dales of Ireland. I would love to go there and spend some time.
Lovely.
So,
I'm going to have to say, Alan, though, I'm as a big Dylan Thomas fan, I'm afraid I can't claim him. He's actually Welsh.
Yes.
But we have Seamus Heaney and James. We have Seamus Heaney. We do have James Joyce. We have William Butler Yates. We've a lot of good. But we can't. Unfortunately, we can't claim him.
Of course.
Yes, and don't tell.
William Butler Yeats. I've read him as well.
Yeah.
Perfect. We'll go ahead.
Don't tell the Welsh that you tried to claim Dylan Thomas. But there we are.
All right. Okay.
Alan, thanks so much for your call. Let's go to Eleanor.
All right.
That's all good. Thank you, Alan. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Let's go to Eleanor in Vancouver. Eleanor, we understand you were decked out in green. How are you celebrating the day?
Well, just decked out in green and sending wishes to my favorite Irish moving company locally. But I want to say that the Irish have the sexiest accent, and if you look it up, you can Google it and it'll say that. So when I visited
And when has the internet ever lied to us?
Exactly. So when we hire the movers, my client and I always try to keep them talking by answering questions. But I was in Ireland in 2016 taking a boat across to the Aran Islands, and the seas were really, really rough. And someone had said, make eye contact. So there was this crew member who was pretty cute with beautiful eyes. So I just kept talking to him, thinking these are the best eyes and this is the best accent. And I did not get seasick, so like other people. So, there's that.
There you go. When Irish eyes are smiling or preventing seasickness, whichever, multi-talented
That's
eyes
the
as
lost
well.
verse.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Eleanor, happy St. Patrick's Day. Thanks so much for the call. Let's go to Steve, who's in Point Roberts. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Steve, what are you doing to mark the day?
Well, I'm just enjoying listening to this. There's a lot of green lawn down here, I'll tell you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be coming back up tonight to have a game or two with my mates. But I'm calling in because it just makes me think of my mother. And her accent was as thick as a brick. And I miss it like you don't know. Yeah. And it was like she just got off the boat. They both came over in 54. She and my dad was from Cornwall. But, it's just this part of you. And just to hear it and to have a pint, I start talking like an Irishman. But what I wanted to say was that she was born in Belfast, okay? So she's from the north. And during COVID, I found a little secret out that if you apply for citizenship in the South, you'll get it. And I did. I had all the papers. And Lord and behold, back comes a passport. It says, you're now Irish. And I go, well, that's wonderful.
Brilliant.
That's true, yes. So if you have an Irish parent or indeed an Irish grandparent, you can register even if you were born somewhere else. If you have an Irish parent or grandparent, you can, and the process is very easy. It's all online. It's very clearly laid out about what you would need to register yourself as being an Irish citizen who is overseas and indeed to secure your passport. So welcome. You're very officially Irish then, Steve, as you celebrate St. Patrick's Day.
You tick the box, Steve.
Thank you very much. I can't wait. I can't wait to get back over. Thank you.
Steve, we really appreciate your call and congratulations on joining the team. Let's go to Keith in Chetwynd. Keith, what's your connection to Ireland?
Well, I'm Black Irish, and a lot of people don't know about us. We were Catholics, but we hung around with the Protestants, and we were actually kind of persecuted in Ireland, and so we left and went to England. And my great on my mother's side, her name was Mary Donovan, and she actually married a Jewish man who was a shipwright from Poland who had fled Poland during the pogroms. So, and there was a rule in England that the Church of England, anybody could get married on Christmas Eve in a church. So Mary Donovan married Herschel Koppel in the church, and that's where my mom's side of the family come from. But my mom's side of the family is always a lot of them never admitted that they were Irish. But I always growing up, I was like, well, we always had fish on Fridays. We lived across the road from a Catholic church, and we also lived beside an Irish pub. So I was like, but nobody ever admitted they were Irish. So anyway, there's a Canadian connection. There's a book called The Black Donnellys.
Mm-hmm.
If you read that book, they're in Ontario, and you could understand what the Black Irish actually went through in order to get here and to go to England, and then I've ended up coming here. And it's a very convoluted story, and it take a long time. Like I was in the British Army. I was in the British Army during the Troubles and all that stuff, and I've always been very proud of being Protestant. But it wasn't until years later I found out I was Catholic. So, you know, so it just goes on from there, and so it's wonderful. And then my nephew, who's Canadian, is from Saskatchewan. He ended up playing for the in Northern Ireland for the Belfast Giants, playing hockey.
Really?
Yeah.
Full circle Canadian-Irish moment.
Full circle. And he said it's lovely there now. Like it's not like when I was in the British Army. You know, everyone's starting to get along. I was talking to people. They were saying they got buses coming up from the south to go and watch the Giants, and it's kind of a neutral place. And he said he really enjoyed his time there, and he actually did his master's degree.
Brilliant.
In Belfast.
Wow.
Yeah, look, well, Northern Ireland is an absolutely wonderful place, and it is really peaceful, and it is one of the things that I do try to get across to people who maybe haven't heard about it or haven't heard about it really since the 70s or have been there. I highly recommend anybody visit there, and the quality of restaurants in Belfast as well is top tier. So if you're a foodie, you're going to have a good time in Belfast for sure.
Well,
Keith, thank you. Keith, apologies. We have to jump off. We're just up against the clock. Cathy Geagan, thank you so much. Ireland's Consul General, for joining us today. Enjoy all the rest of the celebration.
Thank you so much. And just to everybody who's doing anything to celebrate St. Patrick's Day today, have a wonderful time. Enjoy it.
And a note, Farah from Vancouver, who was in the Irish step class, is the winner of the pair of tickets to Irish Movie Night at the Rio tonight, and we'll be in touch shortly with how to claim your tickets. Thank you to everybody who emailed and called and joined our discussion. You can also always email us on any topic, bctoday@cbc.ca.